Alright, today we're going to be learning about the systems of equation using the elimination method. We've already learned the substitution, now we're using or learning another one that we can use. Steps to this: we pick a variable to eliminate, just like we pick a variable to substitute. Now we're eliminating. Sometimes you may need to multiply by a factor to eliminate. You'll see that in an example that I'm talking about, but you may need to multiply by a factor in order to eliminate that variable. Second step, add or subtract to eliminate that variable. Third step, solve the equation for the remaining variable. So after you eliminate it, you should have one remaining. You solve for that. Then you're going to plug that one that you solved for back in to find the eliminated variable. Okay? Then we always write our answer as an ordered pair, or if it's a word problem, we need to answer the problem or answer the question in the problem. All right, so let's go through some of these examples. All right. First one, we have 2x plus y equal to 7 and 3x minus y equal to negative 12. Okay, there's our system, there's two equations. 2x plus y equal to 7, 3x minus y equal to negative 12. Okay, our first step, remember, is pick a variable that we want to eliminate. If I look at these two equations here, I notice that there is a positive y and a negative y. They don't have a coefficient, they're both just a positive 1y and a negative 1y. Now, if I think about how I could eliminate those, if I just add them, a positive and a negative, it makes it become neutral. So it's going to be 0. So all I have to do, I don't have to multiply by anything. All I have to do is just add this, which I've shown in step 2, because I need to determine, okay, am I going to add or subtract to eliminate my variable? Well, if I just add a positive y and a negative y, I'm going to get 0, which is what I want. But then I have to add the rest. So I have 2x plus 3x equal to 5x. 7 plus negative 12 equal to negative 5. Then we need to solve for that remaining variable, which was x. So 5x plus 0, don't have to write anything for 0. So we bring down 5x equal to negative 5. Divide by that 5 in front of my x here to get x equal to negative 1. So that's my third step. I've solved for the remaining variable. Fourth step, I'm going to plug this answer back into my equation. Now, to think about which one I'm going to plug it back into, I would always choose the one that has A, no negatives, and then B, the smaller numbers. So if I look at both of my equations, the top equation has no negatives, and it just works out to be that they have the smaller numbers. So I'm going to plug it back into the top equation. So I take my negative 1, I'm going to point to where it's going, which is to the x spot, because x is equal to negative 1. So I point to where it's going. This, again, is the fourth step. Substituted negative 1 times 2 is negative 2. Bring down my positive y, bring down my 7. So I have negative 2 plus y. Then I needed to solve for y, so I do the opposite of this negative 2 to both sides to get everything away from this y. And when I do that to both sides, I get y equal to 9. Excuse me. So my answer, because this is not a word problem, is going to be an ordered pair. My x comma y, which would be negative 1 comma 9. Okay? So all 4 steps covered right there. All right, next one. Come on. There we go. All right, my next one. We have 7x plus 6y equal to 2. Then we have 2x minus 3y equal to 10. Okay, that's my system. That's my problem that I'm starting with. 7x plus 6y equal to 2. And then 2x minus 3y equal to 10. All right, so if I look at these two things, I notice that they all have different coefficients. Both variables have different coefficients in both equations. So I can't just simply add or subtract. I'm going to have to multiply by a factor. Now, if I look at this bottom equation, I can see that, okay, there's a 2 here, but I can't multiply 2 by anything to get the 7. But if I look at my y's, I have a 3 here. Can I multiply anything by 3 to get a 6? I always want to take the smaller equation and see if I can multiply it by a number, by a factor, to match a larger number, a larger coefficient in the other equation to help eliminate. If I multiply this 3 by 2, I'm going to get 6, which is the same as this, which will help me eliminate it. So that's what I'm going to do here. I move over to this side. I chose y to eliminate, just because it's going to be the easiest one to get to. So to do that, I need to multiply by 2 here. Well, if I multiply by 2 just here, I need to multiply by 2 by everything. So I showed that by just distributing. I'm going to put parentheses on the outside of my bottom equation, put a 2 on the outside, and I'm going to distribute this 2 into everything. Okay, when that happens, okay, I'm going to come over here. I'm going to be left with the top equation is always the same. They just follow the same path. But this bottom one, after I distribute my 2, I'm left with 4x minus 6y equal to 20. So this bottom equation is now 4x minus 6y equal to 20. Okay? I multiplied everything by this 2 because I wanted to get this y equal to 6y, which happens here. So I have 6y, a negative 6y, and a positive 6y. To get rid of this y, all I have to do is add. So I add, going straight down, 7x plus 4x is 11x. 6y plus negative 6y is 0y, so I just write 0. And then 2 plus 20 is 22. Then this brings me to step 3, which is solve for the remaining variable. My remaining variable is x, so I'm going to rewrite this 11x equal to 22. Divide by 11 here. So 22 divided by 11 is 2. So I've solved for x, but then I need to find y. So I'm going to circle it. I'm going to point back to where it's going. Now, if I looked at both equations, remember, I always want to choose the one that is with no negatives, and then B, if that doesn't work out, I need to choose a smaller number. Well, if I look at both of these, one of them has a negative number, so I'm going to go with this 7x plus 6y equal to 2 because it's all positive. I like positive things. Dividing by negative is always just a mess. So I'm going to take this 2, plug it into the top equation because they're all positive coefficients here. So when I plug that into x, I get 7 times 2 plus 6y equal to 2. Then 7 times 2 is 14 plus 6y, that doesn't change. Subtract by 14 on both sides because I'm still solving for y. This is going back to solving one variable equations. Solve for y, bring down my 6y after subtract by 14 on both sides. 2 minus 14 is negative 12. Then I divide by my 6 on both sides to get y equal to negative 2. So my answer as an ordered pair again is 2 because my x was first, and comma negative 2 because my y is negative 2. Okay, so those are the steps. That's part 1 when it said multiply by a factor if necessary. Well, we had to do that in order to eliminate my y. Okay, that's the only way that was going to work. Oh, next example. There we go. Alright, so we have 7x minus 3y equal to 37. And then we have 2x minus y equal to 12. Okay, if I look at both of these, again, I see that there is nothing that I can just add or subtract by right now to eliminate. 7 and 2, they don't cancel each other out. 3 and 1 don't cancel each other out, so we can't do anything there. So we're going to have to multiply again by a factor. This time I'm going to multiply, if I look at I had the same scenario, I have a 2 and a 7. Can't multiply 2 by anything to get a 7. But I have a 1 and a 3. Well, that's easy. 1 times anything, I can get to that other variable. So I'm going to multiply this 1y right here by 3. When I do that 1y by 3, I have to do everything by 3. So I'm going to show that in this step right here with my parentheses and my 3 on the outside. So then I distribute my 3 to everything. And when I do that, come over here, I'm left with, again, remember, the top equation, I'm not doing anything to. I'm just multiplying this 3 by the bottom equation because I want to get it to eliminate this 3. I want these 3's to match up. So when I do that, I'm left with 6x minus 3y, which is what I wanted, and then 3 times 12 is 36. Now, if I looked at both of these equations now that I have it set up correctly, if I add negative 3 and negative 3, I'm not going to get 0. I want to eliminate something. I either have to add or subtract. Remember, step 2 is add or subtract to eliminate. In this case, I'm going to have to subtract because negative 3 minus negative 3 is going to get me that 0, which I want. So this is going back to basic mental math facts. 7 minus 6x is 1x, which is fine. Then negative 3 minus negative 3, anything taken away from itself is going to give you 0, so that's what I wanted here. I wanted to eliminate y. 37 minus 36 is 1. So x minus 0 can rewrite as x equal to 1. That's step 3, I solve for that remaining variable. Then I take that 1, and I'm going to substitute it, follow the arrow all the way back over here. Now, they both had negatives, but I'm going to go with the smaller number choice here. Okay? So if plan A didn't work, plan B, the one with the smaller numbers, smaller coefficients, I'm going to use here, 2x minus y equal to 12. Take that, what was it, 1, plug it into x. So 2 times 1 gives me 2, minus y equal to 12. Then to get rid of this 2, I need to subtract it from both sides because it's a positive 2, so I take it away from both sides. That leaves me with a negative y here. So I have negative y equal to 12 minus 2 is 10. Then I need to get rid of that negative sign, so I'm going to divide by negative 1 here to leave me with y. 10 divided by negative 1, just change it to a negative 10. Okay, so you see, working with negatives is always tricky, so I don't like using them if I don't have to, but in this case, I had 2 different equations with both negatives, so I had no choice. Alright, so I have y equal to negative 10, so my answer is going to be 1 comma negative 10. Alright, so that is our example using subtraction after we had to multiply by a factor. Now, if you don't have to multiply, say the negative 3 was already here, you'd be fine, all you have to do is subtract. But we had to multiply by a factor in order to eliminate y. Alright? Last one. Here you go, all for yourself. Okay? This is your example. Negative 2x plus 3y equal to 17, and then you have a 2x plus y equal to 3. Okay? Step 1, you need to pick a variable to solve for, to eliminate, excuse me. You need to pick a variable to eliminate. If I look at both of these, my hint would be eliminate the x. So in step 2, you need to figure out how am I going to eliminate x. Am I going to add these equations or am I going to subtract them in order to eliminate x? Step 3, you're going to have y equals. You should have y equals. If I were going to eliminate x here, I'm going to have y equals. Then I take that answer, I plug it back into this equation. I'll help you out here because this one has no negatives. They're all positive numbers. I would plug it back into that bottom equation to help me find my other variable. Okay, so you're going to do this example, show me all 4 steps, and I should see all 4 steps on your paper very easily so I can go back and check your work.